All right. Hello, everyone. I am testing if we are live because we've been doing some account changes and I'm not really sure if we are actually live. So if you're watching me, please let me know. I'm also going to be opening YouTube here on the side in just a second because I want to make sure that we are actually live. Also, Gabe, if you can tell me if this is currently live or not. Oh, yes, we are live. Yes, we fixed it. All right, cool. It's working. So, hello everyone. We've started just a little before the live stream because we were not sure if it was going to work, but it did. So, we are here and welcome to another technical live stream here at the Finsweet channel. Today, we are doing another live stream about attributes version 2. I think that it's been already 3 live streams, so today it's the 4th day. And oh, nice. And we've got some people saying hi. Fred in Florida, glad to be here. You look to be live. Nice. All right. So today it's the 4th day of building things with attributes version 2. If you're new today and you haven't watched the previous live streams, let me give you a bit of context. I'm going over many things that can be done with the new version of attributes version 2. On the first live stream, we went over the basics of what the library is and what changed from version 1 to version 2. And then we started going deep into one of the solutions of attributes, which is list. Because with list, we can do lots of cool things. We can sort the list, we can filter the lists, we can combine the list, we can nest the list, we can do lots of things. And with version 2, there are many new things, features that exist, like more advanced filtering setups, even dynamic filters, which I'm going to be talking about today. Also, animations, lots of utilities, etc. And today we're just continuing from where we left off on the previous live stream, which is that we were going deep into the filtering setups, right? So previous live stream, it was all about filtering. Today I'm continuing from we left it, right? So hopefully everything is okay. I think that yes. So I think that we can start. So let's share the screen and let me show you where we are. Okay. So as I mentioned, we did day 1, we did day 2, we did day 3, and day 4, it's supposed to be advanced lists, but there's still some things that we need to tackle from day 3, which is that we need to talk about CSS styles and animations, and we also need to talk about utilities. And then we'll get into dynamic lists, which I think that you all gonna love. So this is what we've been building in the last 3 live streams. Let me open live. Just a second. Yeah, like that. So as you can see, we've got some cool, very non-stylish advanced filtering system in here, which contains a bunch of filters based on brands. We've got even some facet counts that display the forecasted results for each of the selections. We've got all types of filters with select dropdowns, radios, checkboxes, etc. We learned about doing fuzzy searching as well. So, for example, here, if I make a typo, relay, but it's still going to be returning things that kind of look like the expected result. That's with fuzzy searching as well. We learned about operators on the previous live streams as well. We learned how we can have conditions, and each of the conditions can have an operator. That operator could be things like contain, equal, greater than, less than, starts with, ends with, lots of different operators. And with this, we are able to build any kind of logic for matching elements like that. All right. We also learned about creating conditions and condition groups. So the difference between both things, I went very deep into explaining those on the previous live stream as well. But essentially, condition means a specific filter that it's supposed to be matching a specific field in each item. So the name with a value of Riza, like this, it's supposed to be contained by any of the items. So if an item contains Riza, or similar because it's fuzzy searching in this case, it's going to match like that. All right. Um, Okay, perfect. And we also learned about groups. And groups, in this case, it's about grouping conditions. So we've got two groups in here, as you can see. We've got one group that has all these different fields and another group that has these ones. So for example, here, if I want to do a fuel type that contains hybrid, like that, now I'm doing both groups of containing the brand and the fuel type to be hybrid, like that. All right. So all of that, I went very deep into it in the previous live stream. Today, I want to talk about doing animations with the lists. All right. Because everything changed in Attributes version 2. Now, for doing animations, we no longer have built in animations. But let me explain because that's for good. In Attributes version 1, what you would usually do was you would come to the custom attributes that would use something like fs list. Well, it wasn't actually list because it was something like CMS filter animation. And then you would say something like fade. And that would create like this pre-built animation of fading in and fading out, right? But that didn't give you a lot of control. Ideally, people should be able to control exactly how they want the animations to happen, like that. And I already did a very sneak preview of how animations can look like. And let me quickly show you. But essentially, now that we've got full control of things, like for example, I can build this kind of animation where we are doing things like this every time that we are filtering, or we can do specific animations when sorting or when paginating. We've got full control. All right. So let's check it out how to do these kind of things. Before anything, can I ask a question to Gabe, who is managing the live stream? Do we see the comments inside Ecamm? Because I'm starting to suspect that we don't, or at least I'm not seeing them. So I think that I should open the live stream on the site so I can see the comments from people. Give me 1 second. Yeah, because I see some comments from Kai and from Susan and from Fred, but I don't see those comments inside our platform. So there's something not going right in there. So I'm gonna be checking the comments directly from YouTube. That is fine. Yeah, I'm guessing we don't. No. But now I can see them. So all good. All right, cool. So let's go to here, our list, and let's imagine that we want to filter that. Sorry, we want to animate the list every time that we filter it. All right. The way that it works is that when starting to perform a filter, list will add a combo class to the list. Right? Let me explain. So give me 1 second here, like that. So the collection list wrapper, it's going to get a specific class every time that a filtering is happening. And that class by default, it is list filtering, like this. All right. This is list filtering is added to the list. And when the filter finishes, this class is removed from the list, like that. All right. So let's imagine that, and it doesn't matter if it's a just the class itself and that's it, or if it's a combo class. So let's just make an example and make a combo class. So let's add a base class to this. Let's say let's wrapper, whatever. All right. And let's imagine that we've got some styles on this list. It's fine. I don't care much. But then we've got the combo class that's going to be added to the list when it's filtered. So let's do is list filtering, like that. Right. So let's imagine that now every time that the list is being filtered, I want it to look different because we want to do an animation for it. So for example, let's do something very basic. Let's do opacity 0, like that. So when the list is being filtered, the opacity is going to go down to 0. And then when the filter finishes, the opacity is going to go back up because the CSS class will be removed, like that, right? So first the class is added, meaning that the list goes away, and then the class is removed, like this, all right? And because this is CSS, we can make it look a bit better instead of making the change so abrupt like this, because this is a bit you know, sudden. So how about on the list wrapper base class, we go to transitions. And again, this is not specific to attributes. This is just CSS. This is how CSS works. And maybe for the opacity, because we can choose all these sorts of different transitions. We'll look into this in a second. But for the opacity, let's make a duration of 500 milliseconds for changing the ease. So we can see very, very well the animation. So now when the class is added, look at that. It goes to opacity 0, but it uses this transition to make it the change gradually. And if we remove the class, now the list comes back in with this transition. If we make the transition different, maybe instead of using an ease animation, we do something like ease out. Why not? I don't think that we're gonna notice a lot with opacity, but when we start moving things around, we'll probably notice it more. So now that we've got this, let's go and check it out. Oops, not this. This, sorry, this one here, like that. All right. So as you can see here, every time that we filter like that, the class is being added and then it's being removed. And the cool thing of attributes is that attributes automatically detects any kind of animation that is happening when the class is added. All right. What does it mean? It means that it's going to wait until the animation finishes to avoid making things too abrupt. All right. So it's going to wait until the animation finishes. Then, when the animation has happened, it filters the items so the user doesn't see any any layout shifting, anything wrong. And then, once the filtering has happened and all the items have changed, then the class is removed, and again it waits until the animation happens. All right. So as you can see, now I can make these cool animation like that, and it's all CSS. There's no JavaScript other than adding and removing the class, but there's no JavaScript making this animation, which makes it very performant. Let's go a bit more. Yeah, nice. Let's go a bit more deep. Let's try something else. How about instead of just, oh, and by the way, let me pause this 1 second. Give me 1 second. We've got some default filtering and I need to check why that is. But probably we want to have that class added by default. It depends on whatever you prefer. Up to you. But let's create something more dynamic. How about not only we change the opacity, but I don't know. What can we do? Let's move it as well to the bottom so we can do a bit of translation. So for the transitions, maybe we can do the, yeah, let's do the position probably. Or now let's simply do a 3D transform. So how about we move it down a bit like that? Maybe we can move it like 8 rams. Maybe that's too much. I don't know. And then it will go back up. All right. So here in the transitions, let's add another transition for the translation of this. So here, this is the transform, and the transform can be this, maybe can be, let's actually make it the same as opacity. So let's make it 500 milliseconds so it looks fine. And let's make an ease out transition as well. Yeah, why not? So now when we do this, as you can see, it goes down and then it goes back up like that. Cool. How about we do something more? What can we, what else can we do? Maybe we can, let me think. I'm playing around only now with with actual CSS transitions, but we're gonna see how we can do more type of animations. Maybe we can. I don't know. Let me think of transitions. So we can do the size, the height, the borders, the font color, the font size. Let's change the font color. Fuck it. I don't know. Just for shits and giggles. So let's change the font color to something like blue. Oh, scale. Kai was giving me ideas. Let's scale. All right. So let's change this to also scale up a bit. Nice. And how about we make it smaller, maybe? Maybe we can do like this. Is this gonna make sense? I'm not really sure. Oh, that goes very far down. Not really sure why. Ah, let's maybe let's just rotate it a bit. I don't know what's gonna happen. Let me see. Let's do a transition as well. Actually, we've got the transition for transforming. So, all right. But if we rotate it and we also move it down, it's a bit weird, right? Because we don't really see it how it's rotating. Do we? Not really sure. Let's try it. I don't know. Let's try it live. Extreme. Yes. Yeah, I think that well, it's a bit weird because we're combining things very weird, but it's actually cool. Let me not change the opacity for a second. Let's let's just rotate for a second. All right, let's make a rotation. I know that it's going to be ugly as hell, but it's funny. Yeah, it's doing like a whole flip. It's a bit weird. Let me change the rotation. Maybe we can do, instead of rotating on the Z axis, let's rotate it on the Y axis. Huh. Yeah, it's a bit weird still. Ah, right, because I'm changing the opacity. Hold on. Didn't want to change the opacity. It's a bit weird. Ah, now we're talking. All right, because sorry, I had the transitions applied wrongly, but now it has them. All right, cool. You need overflow hidden on the section. I love how Kai is giving me design directions like, no, you're doing this wrong. Look at this. All right. I know that it's a bit ugly. All right. But hopefully you can understand how you can control things just by using CSS like that. All right. And that happens because we're adding the class, we're waiting until any animations happen, and then we're removing the class. All right. Um, you can also write CSS animations. So let's imagine that here for the list wrapper is list filtering. You want to add some CSS animation. So how about we ask ChatGPT to create a CSS animation for us, so you can understand as well how not only you can use transitions, but you can also use CSS animations. The only downside of Webflow is that you don't have built-in CSS animations controls, but you can write them. And also probably with GZAP will also add support for it, but for now there isn't. So how about we ask it, create a CSS animation for an element I um, make it random and funny. I don't know. Let's see what wiggle pop spin. All right, cool. So we've got this wiggle pop spin, which it's a name that really I think that fits you, Kai. This animation. I can imagine Kai with his British accent saying "wiggle pop spin." All right, cool. So we've got this. Let's copy this and put it here somewhere in a code embed. let's let's put this in a style tag like that. Boom. Great. And I don't need this funny thing, but we're going to copy this animation directive, all right? Because we can add that into Webflow. So let me copy this. We can get rid of that as well. Cool. And then here, when is list filtering is active, we want to activate this animation. So let's come here. Let's say animation, perfect. And let's put this value like that. Oh, look at that. All right, cool. I think that we don't need the transitions when animation is happening. Look at that. It's a bit weird, I know. But let's try it out. I'm so bad at designing animations and things. All right, cool. Oh, hold on. We're doing it infinite. We don't want it to be infinite. Is it infinite? Yeah. No, it should not be infinite. It should be only once. So animate only once. Yeah, only once. I don't need the whole animation to happen. I just want to remember what's the keyword for once because I forgot. It is all right. So we simply not define infinite and that's it. So let's try it out. Great. And let's publish. Actually, let me remove the class by default. And now every time that we filter, that animation will happen. So it happens once, but when we filter, it goes crazy. I know it's a bit ugly, but you get the point. All right. So exactly the same as I'm doing with the is filtering class. All right, this one. We've got similar classes for all the other all the other actions. So we've got a class for sorting, and it's called is list sorting. So is list sorting. This class is the one that will be added when the user sorts the list. So that's cool because you can define different animations for different actions. We also have a CSS class for pagination, which is list loading, like that. So if we do this for pagination, then when the user paginates, they go to the next page or they do something else, this class is the one that will be added to the element. So you can define an animation for that. And then we've got the isList starting class. And this one gets a bit of special treatment, and you're going to see it in a second. So let me, for now, just because I made a very crazy animation for filtering and it's gonna be in a pain in the ass. Is loading now, and the filtering, I want to remove this animation. Let's remove it like that. Cool. All right, so you can additionally use a special CSS class for each item to define the styles that the item will have before being rendered. Let me explain. So we've got this list is list starting, like that. All right. And this this CSS class will be present on the item before the item is rendered. And once we place the item on the list, we remove that class. So it's exactly the opposite of when actively adding the class and removing it. The class is already added. We play with the removal of it to do a transition. Let me explain. So let's imagine that, let me make something crazy as well, that the background it's something like blue. But let's make it a bit opacity like that. I know this is hideous, but let's imagine that this is actually I can simply reuse this background blue light. Let's use that blue light. It's gonna look better. Blue light, like that. All right. So when the item is placed on the page, this class is present, and then list will remove the class, right? Meaning that we can do a transition with this as well. So let's do a transition for the background color, and let's make it 200 milliseconds with ease. It's absolutely fine. Great, like that. So when the class is removed, somehow it's not transitioning. Why is that? Why are you not transitioning? Give me 1 second. Let's do all properties. Just a second. Now is it transitioning? I'm not sure. Let me try 500 milliseconds. No, it is not transitioning. Hold on. Am I doing something wrong? Why is it not transitioning? Is it Webflow or is it me? Hold on. Let me test. Publish. It's still publishing. All right, published. All right. Yeah. So you can see it live. I don't know why, but in Webflow it's not working. So something definitely crashed in there. But as you can see, when we filter, obviously the items are changing because they are being rendered on the page, right? So that means that the class is being removed. And when the class is being removed, then you can see this transition happen like that. So that is cool as well because you can then animate the items one by one. How about doing staggering as well? We can do that also. And the way that it works is that we simply add a fs list stagger class, not class, sorry, attributes. I don't remember if we do it on the item or on the list, but let's try it out. So let's grab this item and let's do fs list stagger, and let's do maybe 100 milliseconds. What's going to happen is that instead of removing the class from all items at once, it's going to remove the class one item, then it's going to wait 100 milliseconds, then it's going to remove the class from the next item, then wait 100 milliseconds, then remove the class from the next item, and so on and so forth, right? This might not work because I don't remember if we need to add it to the item or the list. Let me double check. Let's check it out. Hold on a second. All right, I'm seeing something funny. Let me add it to the list instead of, because I think that fs list stagger. Let's do 200 milliseconds, and I'm gonna check the live result because I think that Webflow might not be adding the attributes properly again. Is it adding the attributes? I think it should. All right. Yes, it is. Well, as you can see, what it's doing is that it is removing the class one by one. I know it's a bit too much like that, but when this is happening, each of the items staggered one by one after 200 millisecond is having that class removed from it, like that. All right. Usually you wouldn't do that if there's a lot of items, because right now I think that I'm doing 100 items per page, right? Correct. I'm doing 100 items. But if you have less items, let's imagine that it's 10 items, then the user will see the animation, and that's pretty cool. But it's something that I don't recommend you using unless you've got a very specific use case for. Stagger works with move animations, etc. Yes, it does, because all it does is let me show you. It just remove the classes from the items one by one. So imagine that on the item we've got here not a blue background, because that's a bit weird, but imagine that we've got some opacity to it, so zero opacity, and also it's transformed down a bit. So let's move it down a bit, maybe like 2 ram, like that, right? So when the class is removed, it goes opacity 100%, and it goes back up because the transition is removed as well. Not just the transform is removed, sorry. And let's make this 200 milliseconds, like that, and maybe ease out. Cool. So now if we keep the staggering, so let's do the staggering just to make it a bit faster. Let's do it 50 milliseconds, or yeah, let's do 100 milliseconds. Boom, like that. So now you're gonna see how all the atoms one by one do boop, 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 all back up. Let's check it out. And I'm gonna zoom out so you can see all of them. So if I filter, look at this. Yay! Pretty cool, right? But again, if you got 100 items, then the animation takes multiply the 100 milliseconds for 100 items as well for the animation, the 200 milliseconds. So it's quite a bit. It's quite a bit. So you probably want to be careful about using staggering if you've got a lot of items. All right. Cool. Okay. So CSS styles and animations. Hopefully this is already clear. Let's talk about some of the utilities that I did not have enough time to talk about on the previous live stream. So utilities, we saw some cool things like tag field, for example, and we also saw the highlight. Highlight, if you didn't watch it, you can highlight results. Let me remove the animation for now because it's going to be a pain in the ass otherwise. So I don't want any animations to happen. Yeah, all good. Like that. Perfect. So when we are searching, if you've noticed or if you watched the previous live stream, we do have a very cool utility that it's called highlight. So for example, if I start writing here, I do Vesalante. As you can see, it goes and it highlights things as I type. Vesalante, right? And that's because we've got this highlight utility that you add to the list. And when highlighting is enabled, what it happens is that it adds a CSS class to the specific letters that are matching. So it grabs this and it wraps the matching inside a span. And then that span receives a special class that it's called isList highlight, this one. And because I did this styling of adding the background, that's what it's happening. But again, we like to give you full control of the design. So that's why instead of building in the stylings or building in the animations, we let you those with CSS. So in this case, the isList highlight is just a class that is being added, and you've got full control to decide what to do with it. So in this case, blue light background, right? But I could tweak the text, I could tweak the positions, I could tweak whatever I want, like that. Okay, cool. So let's check out some more other utilities. The first one, it's debouncing. For those who you don't know what debouncing is, imagine that I am typing on the list, right? And I'm typing. Every time that I type, it is filtering the list, right? It's Vesalante. Every time that I'm typing, it's triggering a filter, right? Which is most of the times what you want. But imagine that instead of um, doing things immediately, you want the user to stop typing first. And maybe you want the user to stop typing, and then after 200 milliseconds, you filter, right? With debouncing, what we're doing is every input that it's going in, it's going in a queue, and it's going to wait until, if you define, for example, 200 milliseconds, it's going to wait. All right, we are queuing all of this that the user is typing. Let's wait 200 milliseconds until the user stops typing, and then we filter. So you can do that on an input basis. So I can select any input in here, and I can define a debouncing. So let's go to settings, and let's do fs list debounce, and let's add some milliseconds. Let's make it very high for demonstrating. So let's do 500 milliseconds. So now you're going to see that I will start typing, but it's not going to be filtering immediately. It's only going to filter whenever I stop typing for 500 milliseconds. So let's try it out. Bezelante. And after 500 milliseconds, it is when it filters like that. Can you see the difference? If I keep typing, it doesn't do anything. Only when I stop typing, it's when it's going to trigger this like that. Oh, my name is popping up all the time. How do I disable this? Anyways. Cool. So with debouncing, if you don't want the filter to get the list to be all the time, like especially if you've got animations, right? Because if you've got it in animation, maybe you're fading out and fading in, you probably don't want to be like going in and out, in and out, in and out all the time. You want the user to stop doing whatever he's doing, and then you filter and animate the list, right? Okay, cool. Let's check out another one that it's pretty cool. Let's um let's jump. Let's skip this one for a second. Let's go to Filteron, right? Because it's related to what I was doing right now. By default, list is filtered with input events. So an input event in JavaScript, it means that the user has typed essentially, right? So every time that I'm typing, well, now we've got debouncing. Let me disable this. Every time that I'm typing, an input event goes. 1 second. Like that. So an input event goes every time that I'm typing. But in JavaScript, you've got other types of events for elements. One very common event as well, it's the change event. And a change event, the difference between input and change is that change only is triggered whenever there's some difference in the input. So for example, if I have an A, let me unfocus it. So let's imagine that there's already an A in there. If I come here and I type something, now that the value has changed, when I unfocus this, so if I go to the next field, for example, so I'm losing focus on the input, then a change happens. So that means that if I type, nothing will be filtered. But the moment that I lose focus on the element, then a change is triggered. And we can use that as well. So we've got this special attribute that it's called Filteron. FS list filter on. By default, as I mentioned, is on input. But if we do change like that, now the behavior, it's going to be the one that I mentioned. And by the way, I'm doing things specifically to one item, but remember that in attributes, you can always not do things only to one element, but you can grab a parent element and you can add the attribute to the parent element. And immediately all the items, all the elements below, all the children elements inherit that setting. I'm going to show you now in a second. But now that this specific field has the change, so now here, hold on. Did I do it in here? Oh, maybe this goes to the form actually. Hold on a second, because this might go to the form, to the fs list element filters. Let me try it out. Fs list filter on. I think that it's actually that. So this specific attribute, it goes not to the input, it goes to the form, which means that all the inputs are going to behave the same. Yeah, like that. All right. So as you can see, nothing is happening. There's a, but the moment that I lose focus, so for example, if I hit the tab button, now it's filtering. Let me go back. Let's do Monboo. If I hit tab, or I don't need to hit tab. If I simply just click away, the focus is lost and the change event is triggered, like that. Right. For the rest of the inputs, so the select dropdowns, the radios, and the checkboxes, there's not much difference essentially, because whenever you're selecting something, you're already changing focus, meaning that the input and the change event trigger at the same time. But let's see another cool event that we've got, and it's the filter. Sorry, not the change, but the submit, like that. When we do submit, surprise, surprise, it's only going to be filtered when we submit the form. So let's add a form button, so a submit button, like that. Filter, please, like this, right? So if on the form we've got the submit here, then it's only going to filter it when um, when submitting the form. So let's try it out here. Yes. So now I can select things, as you can see, but it's not going to be until I submit the form. So I click on filter, please, that it then filters things. I can do as well. Let's change this like that. And then if I filter, boom, we've got the results. Right. But what if I also, because as you can see by default, when we are triggering a filter, the form is not being submitted. We are preventing the form from submitting, because you probably don't want to be sending those filters to Webflow, right? But what if, for example, and I'm going to show you a cool trick now. What if, for example, we do want the form to be submitted? Let's imagine that here on this form, when we click on it, we want the form to be submitted, and then the items um, are filtered, because maybe you're collecting some kind of leads generation. So maybe on your landing page, you want people to submit the form, and after they've submitted the form, you show them some results, maybe because they first need to select for a specific service or something, and you collect the data from the contact, and then when they submit, the data goes to Webflow because it's being submitted, and also you're um, filtering the items based on whatever they selected. We can do that. So, and actually, we can combine it later with another element that it's very cool with, which is the initial element. So let's try it out. Here, what I want to do is say fs list allow submit, and I'm going to say true. And the moment that we allow submit, everyone knows what's going to happen. It is going to be submitted to Webflow. Bum, bum, bum. So let's check it out. Zalan. And when I click on filter place, it's submitted, but also it goes to Webflow. So because it goes to Webflow, it's triggering the native form submission, meaning that it's going to display the success message in here, right? Or the error message if there's something wrong, right? And also the cool thing is that now we are collecting this data. So let's go to site settings. Let's go to forms. And I should see this being inputted to the project. Cool. Nice. But we can do cooler things as well. Let's imagine that instead of using the native Webflow form submission, we want to use a custom action. All right, stay with me. This is going to make sense. So let me go to another page for a second, because I'm going to show you a quick cool trick. Or let me explain. Let me show you first what's going to happen, and then I'm going to show you the cool trick. So let's do https example.com. All right, that's going to be the action, and let's do a method of get. When you define an action, redirect page URL. No, we don't want to redirect. Here, when we define an action to the form, Webflow does not submit the form natively. Does not do a form submission to Webflow, but instead it just lets the form to behave natively. And what happens? All right, cool. Let me ask a question to the people who's watching. Let me ask how many of you know the HTML behavior of a form, non-Webflow form. So a normal form when you define an action with a method of get, because we've got a method of get, all right? And we submit the form without any JavaScript happening. Can anybody tell me what's gonna happen when that happens? I'm curious. I want to know. I'm gonna wait because I know there's a bit of delay. All right, so I'm gonna wait for, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds. If nobody answers, I'm just gonna move on because otherwise I'll be staring at the camera, waiting. But come on, I have faith in you guys. Somebody tell me what's gonna happen. Let's inspect the elements here. You can see that we've got the form with the method of get and the action that goes to example.com. You don't know. All right, cool. So let's try it out. Let's do the name. Let's here do this. Let's submit the form. So I'm just going to click on filter, or I could simply hit enter. Check it out. Look at this. What happens is that it navigates to the destination, the action URL, and it puts the form filter values in query parameters. All right, that's how a native form submission works. So as you can see, I know it's a bit small, so let me copy this and go. Let's go here. It did one to example.com. I think that we can put it a bit bigger. Hold on. Large. Example.com. And then in query parameters, it added all the different values of the form. So the name that I typed, it was here in a query parameter. So as you can imagine, maybe we can use this to combine it to send the user to another page with some filters already happening. What do you think? So let's imagine that I've got another page. All right. First of all, let me show you. Let's activate the show query. 1 second. So let's do show query. Fs list show query. Let's say this to true. And let's publish this here. You probably are seeing now where I'm going with this. Let's publish it. And let's see 1 second what the name would be. So let's do Vesalante. Hold on. Shit, because this is now it's going to go to example.com. I don't want this. So let me remove the action for a second. And I'm also going to remove the Filteron because I want to show you what we can do with form submissions. All right. Let me type here some name. So Veratella. All right, cool. So this is the structure of the query parameters. All right. So potentially I can grab this. I can go here to another page. Let me create another page. New page. Yes. Test. And let's add a form. I know that it's ugly like this. Let's add the name. Let's use the form field name. So this name is the one that is being sent as a query parameter. All right. This is standard HTML. This is not attributes. Let's use the query parameter that FSList uses for filtering, like that. And now here we can say, tell me the name of the car. Yeah. Also on the form, let's make this action to go to the other page. So the action should go to this page here. Action, get, boom. Let's publish this. And now when we submit this form, it's going to go to, Let's submit this. It's going to go to the other page with the query parameter already defined and filtering. How cool is that? No JavaScript, no custom code, nothing. Just using native form submissions. It's very cool, very convenient. So anytime that you want to grab some query parameters or some data from the user, and when the user submits the form, then we send them to somewhere else with some pre-filter list. You don't need JavaScript. You only use native form submissions with the actions, right? Cool. Okay. What else? What else? We've got more things to do. Oh, there was one more thing that we could do here. And it was that, so let me, yeah, so we can select filters, then hit submit and go to another new page with the filter selection. Correct. Yes. Yep. So let me enable back again 1 second the allow submit. So here, fs list filter, filter on. Let's do submit. And then let's also do fs list, allow submit. Let's do this for a second. All right, like this. Boom, perfect. And then also let's do the initial. And the initial was, hold on, because now I forgot how to use the initial. Let's go to the documentation. Initial state. The final element that will be displayed initially before any filter is activated. Yes. It's not an empty state, it's an initial state. Use attribute if you want 0 items to show initially in your list. Yes, I know. But I want to also know how to hide the list. So yeah, stay with me. Please use a filter like that. All right, I'm going to copy it from another project for a second. But essentially, let's use these list initial like that. All right. So this list initial here, and let's then, I can't remember if we need to hide the list or not. I'm going to check it in a second. But this list in element equals initial, it's going to show whenever the user still has not applied any filters. So first, there are no filters. We display this element, and the list, it's going to be hidden. And then when the user applies some filters, then we display it. So we can combine it with the submitting. So imagine that you really want to gather somebody is lead or something. Then we force them to submit. And then when submitting, because there's going to be some filters applied, please use a filter. Let's do Besalante. When I submit the form, now the form is going in because we allowed to submit it, but also because there are filters applied, then the filter is being displayed with the applied filters. So I'm getting a bit more in depth here and just doing very edge cases. But as you can see, we can combine all sorts of configurations to create these kind of different effects and different behaviors. All right, cool. It's 50. We're almost done. So let me do one more thing, and I think that I'm not going to have enough time to go with advanced list. We can decide. So splitting. Let's try it out. So with splitting, we essentially tell list to split words into different conditions. Remember that when we are filtering, list uses the concept of a condition. And a condition means that a field equals or contains or something, it's the operator, and then we've got the filter value. And that filter value can be a single value or it can be a multiple value. And we've got a multiple value, then we can decide as well the matching. Do we want one value to match? Do we want all the values to match? All of that, you can do it. You have control over it. Check the previous live stream if you want to learn how to do it. So let's imagine that I not only want to consider whatever I type here as just one value. What if I want to allow um, having multiple values by splitting the words? We can do that. So first of all, again, I know that I'm going back and forth a lot with this, but let me disable submitting like that. Let me, well, we'll publish in a second. And here on this input, let's say fs list split, and let's say equals to true. I'm also going to, yeah, let me disable fuzzy for a second. Let's use contain like this. Cool. Boom. So by default, when we do fs list equal split equals to true, it's going to be splitting by white spaces. So now it's going to be, bam, we've got one. And if I hit space and I do mon like that, as you can see, now this is being treated as two different values, either v or mon. And as you can see, it is matching v, but also it is matching mon, like that. Or what if I also do, I don't know what else I can, maybe, let me get rid of, let me use Van and Silly. Yeah, for example, Van and Silly, like that. So the cool thing with this is that you can allow the user to type different type of words, and each word will be matching. But not only that, because maybe instead of using white space to split, you want to use something different. You can simply, instead of passing true, you can simply pass something else. So let's imagine that we pass a semicolon or a colon or a underscore or triple underscore. It's up to you. But let's use a semicolon like that. So now when we are splitting, now you can type whatever you want. So let me get rid of the core params 1 second. So let's do Ben, and I want to split, and then so as you can see, so this helps me in case that you wanted to filter for things that are multi-word like that, right? As you can see, whenever I put a semicolon, I know that it's a bit small, but when I put a semicolon, then it is separating that as a different value for the filter. All right. And the last thing is that remember that, as I mentioned, when there are multiple values for a specific filter, you can define if the matching should be or it should be and matching. By default, it is or, meaning that the items should match one value or another value, any of the values that you're writing here, like that. So as you can see, they match there, so they are returning. But what if you want to match all of them? You can do that as well. So here, let's do the splitting. Let's go back to spaces. And then also let's do fs list filter match, I think that is. Yes, filter match. And in this case, let's make it and, like that. So when we do that, now we're going to be splitting, and each of the words that we're splitting should be contained by an element. So for example, if I want to match this one, let's say that they should have they and should be te as well. So let's do, let me refresh. Let's do ve and it should be te as well. So now only the items that have ve and have te at the same time, ve and te. And by the way, highlighting it's still a bit limited. So if you club multiple values, it's only going to be highlighting one of the values. So in this case, ve is matching, te is matching. So only these two items are the ones that have both things. But for now, only of the values is the one that's being highlighted, all right? That's a limitation. Helper text needed. What do you mean helper text needed? Didn't get you here, Kai. I need you to help me. We've done CSS styles. We've got utilities. Great. The next thing is about advanced lists. So we're going to have 2 more live streams. Cool. I don't know if Kai is still around to answer the question. Helper text needed. But if I don't get any further, so users know they can filter by space. Oh, yeah. Kai always thinking about the UX. I couldn't care less, but you're very right. Yes. So here that you should have probably something like, hey, you can split by spaces. Nice. All right, cool. So guys, everyone still watching, I really appreciate it. Um there's still tons of things to show, and the next thing that I want to display in another live stream is about dynamic filters. A dynamic filter is essentially, actually, let me show you maybe the example, the live demo. So a dynamic filter is a filter where the user can see, let me show you the video. The user can choose the filters themselves. So can you see how they can add more conditions, and they can select the condition field, and they can select the operator, and then they can select the value like that? That's called a dynamic filters system, right? That is also a new thing in Attributes version 2. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in the next live stream. How do we build a list like that? Right? But next week, I'm going on vacation. So you guys are going to have to wait on till the, what's the next live stream going to be on? It's going to be the, I don't know if it's going to be the 15th or the 22nd, actually. We'll confirm, all right? But everyone, please stay tuned, because on August, we're doing a bit of pause because I'm going on a holiday. But when we come back, we are going to be doing this. We're going to be building a dynamic filter like that, where you can dynamically choose how you want the list to behave like that. All right? Look at this. How cool is it? Nice. So I wish everyone a very good weekend, very good first weeks of August, because I'm not going to be around here. And see you on the next live stream. We're going to be building this. Thank you, everyone.